If you thought this week was going to be chill, the market makers had other plans for you. This week is one of those weeks that shows you exactly how they bait you in, flip you upside down, and leave you wondering, how did I not see that coming? So if you want to learn how to not get caught next time, stick with me. Hi, my name is Janet and this is Trade Travel Chill. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button nice and early so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. Just a quick reminder, this Friday wrap up is for educational purposes. I'm not here to tell you where to enter and exit right now. I'm here to show you exactly how this week unfolded so you can see the setups, the traps, the levels, train your eye to spot them live, and hopefully you learn something new. So for anyone who leaves a comment saying, this is old news, congratulations, you've missed the point completely. Let's get into it. In this week's wrap up, you'll see how the weekend trap sucked in new long, the signs that were there for Asia's reversal, what the US bank holiday and the 83-year Jupiter return means for volatility, plus Jarrid's macro angle on why the whole market's driven by hype right now and why bonds could end up being the smart safe haven if things flip. And a fun little sneak peek at what Annii said in her community Q&A that had me in stitches. This one's going to be a good one. So let's rewind back to the weekend. This week we did get a typical weekend trap where price just consolidated. We did get a move out of the consolidation early, but let's look at the signs here. Was there a heads up that this was going to happen? If you've been watching this channel for a while now, you'll know that when price is in consolidation, the open interest is flat and the volume is flat, a stop hunt is needed before a major move is made. Essentially why they do that is because when price is in consolidation, people get bored, they start taking position, anticipating a breakout and hoping that they're on the right side of the trade. But if the open interest is flat whilst we're in sideways consolidation, this means traders aren't taking a position and the market maker needs to drive price in a direction to get traders to open new positions. So when they spiked price out of the weekend trap, you can see that worked because the open interest started to rise, inducing traders to open long positions, whilst at the same time taking out anyone who opened short positions over the weekend. Now this part was a little tricky because I would have been waiting for Sunday 5 p.m. New York to anticipate whether we get a second side M formation that leads us into the false move week beginning day trade, or see whether we held and then pushed out for another rise level and continued the trend. So from there we managed to break the high of the week before Asia then opened and quickly reversed price. This move here was part of the false move. The market maker didn't induce enough traders, so they had to send it up one more time before we got our false move week beginning day trade to the downside. Now before we get into Monday's price action, Annii did a YouTube live stream at the time of this move happening. She breaks down how the weekend trap was looking, what she was expecting from the weekend trap leading into Monday false move week beginning. She laid out the bigger backdrop and reminded everyone not to trust breakouts in low volume weekend trap. Now rolling into Monday's price action, for anyone that did open longs over the weekend or even through this move here around Sunday 5 p.m. New York, their stop losses would be placed underneath market structure, whether that be here, here, or this point here. But what happens when they open new positions is it builds up the liquidity below price. So now with fresh liquidity built up below price, we see the false move week beginning day trade happen to the downside. Now this move here that happened in Asia, on the 5-minute time frame, there was an M formation there. The next play after that is let price pull away, let it break the 50 EMA with volume and make a run to the 200 EMA, then look for a retest of one of our key areas, the 50 EMA, unrecovered vector candles, before looking for the next position short as a day trade. Now whilst Asia was doing its thing, Jarrid dropped his macro blog, and if you didn't read it, here's the simple version. Right now the market's basically riding on hype and multiples, not real strong fundamentals. Stocks are trading like they're risk free, which makes no sense when you've got US Treasury bonds paying you 4% plus with zero drama. Jarrid broke down Rosenberg's point that people are treating the S&P 500 like it's a guaranteed bet. The price to earnings multiple is up near 22 when the fear level should be way lower if you compare it to bonds. So the risk premium, the extra return you're meant to get for picking stocks over safe bonds, is basically zero right now, and that's your red flag. What does that mean? Well, when the music stops, the mean reversion comes for overpriced stocks first. If rates drop, bonds can rally. If stocks slip, bonds hold up. That's why Jarrid's watching treasuries, gold and silver. And here's the part a lot of traders miss. Jarrid's not saying dump your crypto. He's saying understand what the smart money does with big moves. If the big picture shifts, the flow shifts. He also mentioned gold and silver. Central banks are still stacking gold quietly while retail's busy chasing stocks. Same for silver. Classic catch-up trade, when people finally panic and rotate back into safer real assets. Because of Jarrid, we have an understanding of the bigger picture and what's driving these levels. If you're ignoring macro, you're only seeing half the board. So the big takeaway, don't get tunnel vision on charts alone. We read levels and the story behind them. So from Asia's initial high of the day, we have a clean drop level 1, broke the 50 EMA with volume, made a run to the 200 EMA. That move caused liquidations if we look at open interest. Price then retested the 50 EMA during the UK session before giving us a drop level 2, which also caused liquidations, which we can see when we look at open interest. So with a clear drop level 1, drop level 2, the EMAs acting as our dynamic resistance, we can see that we got our drop level 3. Continuing on with Tuesday, you guys were blessed with another live stream from Annii. She talked about the Bitcoin ETF and what actually happened on the charts once it got approved. Same with the ETH ETF, and then tied that into how the Sol ETF could play out as well. Then she did her technical analysis on a bunch of altcoins she's watching, and the good thing is that TA is still valid right now. Some have already made their move, but a few haven't yet. So if you missed the first push, there's still time if you're patient and wait for the right setup instead of jumping in late. She also talked about the difference between her strategy and Pedro's and how she might weave parts of his cycle approach into hers once she's done more research. So if you haven't watched that live yet, I'd go back and take notes, mark those setups, keep them on your watch list and stick to your plan. Now from here, I want to talk a little bit more about price action on Monday and Tuesday. Each session has their own typical behavior. If you don't already have this indicator on your chart, you can add it by coming up to indicators, typing in market session times from Trade Travel Chill. Once you add that to your chart, it'll look like this. Now what we expect from Asia is consolidation between a 1 to 2% range with multiple touches to the top and multiple touches to the bottom. We can see that Asia stayed within that 2% range. That is a typical session for Asia. For UK, we expect UK to run a trend, and then when it comes to US session, they can either continue that trend or completely reverse it. So when we look at this price action here for this day, this is typical behavior from each session. Asia consolidate, UK run a trend, US session reverse. So when I look at this week's price actions, we can see that Asia ran a trend. This isn't typical behavior. Then we can see during the UK session that they consolidated and then US session continued the trend after that. So that means we had a session shift this week and the signs were there early on. Moving into Tuesday's price action, we see Asia run a trend again, UK continued that trend, and then US session gave us typical manipulation at the start of the US session before continuing the trend again. Now before I get into why that is important, so just keep that in the back of your mind, I want to share a blog that SilverWolf dropped for the community in regards to the Sol ETF, and if you missed it, here's the simple version. The first ever Solana staking ETF just got approved in the US. They found a clever loophole by using a C Corp structure. They can pay staking rewards legally, skipping the usual SEC crypto trust hurdles. It means they jump the queue while everyone else is still stuck waiting for crypto to be fully treated as a commodity. And Grayscale might convert their big basket fund too, which means even more indirect Sol exposure alongside Bitcoin and Ethereum. So what does that mean for you? It's the same story every time. Big hype, FOMO spike, profit taking, then the real volume comes in later. So the smart play isn't to chase the first green candle, it's to wait for a pullback. Longer term, even a piece of Bitcoin's ETF flows hitting Sol is huge, and it sets up other altcoins to follow. XRP, ADA, DOT, all of it lines up for the next wave. So my key takeaway from that is good news can still trap you if you jump in blind. Always trade the levels, not the headline. Now it is Wednesday and we're getting back into price action. Now currently I am showing you all of this on the 15-minute time frame, and quite often what can happen is people forget to zoom out. So when we go back to the 4-hour time frame, we can see that price came back to retest the 200 EMA. So key level to watch out for, and this is also something that Annii covered in her YouTube videos. So we have a rise level 1, an extended boardroom, where on a lower time frame, we talked about this, they induced traders during Sunday and Monday before we got the false move week beginning day trade to the downside. Now, the false move week beginning ended up giving us the retrace back to the 4-hour 200 EMAs. So just a reminder, if you were trading on lower time frames, to remember to zoom out, starting at the monthly time frame if it's near the end or start of a new month, the weekly time frame if it's the end or start of a new week, and every single day, no matter what, you should be starting out on the daily time frame before you start to work your way down to the lower time frame. On the 4-hour time frame, we've just made ourselves aware that we are around the 4-hour 200 EMA, and on the 1-hour time frame, it roughly lines up with the 800 EMA. Now, there was another indicator we used that also gave us the heads up to start looking for the reversal pattern here. It was the RSI. We can see on the RSI we created a low. On the chart, that equals this point here. Price then continued to the downside, whilst on the RSI, that created an equal low. This is what we call a bullish divergence. It is where price makes a lower low, however, the RSI creates a higher low or equal low. Essentially, the sellers are running out of steam even though price is continuing to move to the downside. Once you get your bullish divergence at a key area like this EMA, you start to look for your reversal patterns or bullish candlestick patterns. This bullish divergence teamed up with the 4-hour 200 EMA, the 1-hour 800 EMA, and our false move week beginning to the downside, that there would have been enough to open a position. You don't need to tick 1,000 boxes just to open a trade. So now let me drop down to the 15-minute time frame again. The reversal pattern is a final damage W formation. Asia did not give us a typical session. We talked about this earlier on. So if we look at price action, Asia ran a trend to the upside and then UK consolidated before continuing higher in the US session. If you need an exchange to trade on, consider checking out Bitunix. It is non-KYC, no VPN, so you'll be able to get access to this one worldwide. They offer futures and spot trading, and they have an earn feature which allows you to stake your crypto to earn more crypto. By using the link in the description below, you'll get a 20% trading fee rebate on all of your trades for life, so you can save and keep more of the profit. So now we move into Thursday's price action. We have the rise level 1, rise level 2, so we are awaiting a rise level 3. However, I was not yet convinced that this move was over, and I was looking for one more little spike to the upside. If we get one more spike to the upside, the open interest would start to rip because people would get FOMO thinking, okay, this is the one that breaks the all-time high. So if we start to see open interest rising and we get a stopping volume candle, then that would be my sign, depending on where you got in. That would be my sign to exit that trade. So what I want is one more little spike, clear stopping volume candle, and then assess price action from there. Now back to the real charts. That session was held here at the end of the UK session. The reason we have our live sessions at the end of the session is because we want to give the community our thoughts on what we would be looking for going into the open of the new session. During that last little spike up, we did see the open interest start to increase, completing our rise level 3 for the 15-minute time frame. Now to the average trader, you kind of look at these news events and you think, don't really know what they mean. Is that good or bad for price action? Is it a news event that could cause major volatility like FOMC? Or is it a news event where price might just do nothing? And the good thing is we have our own macro economist, which is Jarrid, who can break down what the results from the news events mean for price actions. So at the time of the ADP non-farm employment change at the end of the UK session on Wednesday, we had Jarrid come in at the exact time of the news event. He says ADP results way below forecast, negative 33k versus 99k forecast. Ouch. Now, for most of us in the community, we just want to know whether it means up or down for current price action. If we scroll down, we can see Miha has asked, what does this imply longer term? Jarrid, it's likely positive for stocks, cryptos in the short term. So if we go back to the charts at the time of Jarrid posting that and that news event happening, you can see that price pushed out from there, giving us our rise level 2. You can't get much closer than that. Having a macroeconomist making something so complex, simplifying it, and giving the community a simple up or down in real time as the news event is happening. And this is why you should consider grabbing yourself a TTC membership, so you can stay on top of price action as it is happening. Our members get everything first. We have 2 memberships, one being a business class, which is better for self-paced learners. However, this one does not include direct access to the team. With the first class membership, you'll get everything in business class, and you'll be able to join the live sessions and take part in the conversations that we have in Discord. So if I was to recommend a membership, first class would be it. So Thursday's price action ran pretty clean. We got our 3 level rises, but what caught a lot of people was how quick it moved without really giving that obvious pullback. This is where we see Annii drop a YouTube video that day for exactly that reason. She wanted to get ahead of it and give everyone a clear reminder not to chase a move that's already gone. She broke down what to watch next, where the next pullback might come, and why forcing a late entry out of FOMO usually does more damage than good. It's basically that reminder we all need. If you miss the first leg, don't panic, the next setup will come, if you're patient enough to wait for it. And speaking of waiting and watching, on Thursday I just sat back with my popcorn watching Jarrid and Pedro spark up one of the funniest but serious chats we've seen in a while. And our community loves to have a bit of a banter, and sure enough, someone dropped this meme that just summed up the conversation perfectly. So here's what sparked it. Jarrid called out that alt season was basically cancelled this cycle because there's no free money coming in from the government or the Fed like we've had in the past. Now Pedro, who's been calling for an alt season all year, has jumped in, going head to head with Jarrid, saying alt season will happen by Q1 2026. If I'm wrong, I'll do a 100 XRP giveaway for the community. Classic Pedro, bold, ready to back it up, and Jarrid being Jarrid, pulled it back to the charts and said, well, depends how you define alt season. If you go by total 2 minus USDT, we kind of had one in November, which only made the debate funnier. And that's what I love about having these two in here, because Jarrid is deep macro, data for days, decades of context, whereas Pedro's all cycles, gut call, and he'll bet on it even when everyone else doubts it. And by now, I'm sure Annie's sitting back and eating popcorn with me, because she says, Pedro, I'm bringing Jarrid to our YouTube debates. So keep an eye out, because this is one you don't want to miss. And right after all of that, we were lucky enough to get even more from Annii on Thursday too. She popped into Discord and said, I'm free. Does anyone need me for anything? I'm starting a thread. Bombard me with your emotions. And honestly, you know what happens when Annii opens that door? Everyone piles in with questions, thoughts, mindset blocks, pretty much everything. So that turned into her doing a private community video where she went through the best questions, gave real answers, and shared that side of herself you don't always get to see live.
The moral of the story is make as fucking much money as you can now, because you need it now to get you through what could potentially be a very bad time coming. There's absolutely no downside to getting your shit together and trading well now. Most people don't even see what is potentially coming. You go and look on TikTok and they're doing clothing hauls, right? They've got makeup rooms full of fucking bullshit makeup. The boys are buying Lambos. Like, they don't even have a clue what is coming, and you have a clue. You have a clue because you're here. You have me, you have Jarrid, you have the cabin crew.
That clip honestly says it all. It's inspiring to see Annii share the real side of trading, the stuff no one else really talks about. Our community is honestly so lucky to get that version of her, the raw, honest, no sugarcoating Annii. It's the cherry on top that makes TTC different. But again, if you're not part of our private community, consider grabbing yourself a membership using the link in the description below. Alright, so let's roll forward and talk about where we are at now with Friday's price action and what we're watching to wrap up this week. With all 3 levels complete on the 15-minute time frame, we're now watching to see if price will pull back into one of our key areas below price. What I like about this level is we have a large cluster of liquidity that adds confluence to this level, but it's not an automatic buy. We want to assess what price does in this area and then we react, because it could also come for the liquidity that is lower. Our community have absolutely been slaying the markets this week. Radio 99p already up 17% and it's not even a week. Bradley Goodyear with the past 4 trades, 3 wins, 1 break even, and they have their charts to back it up. You can clearly see why they entered and why they took that trade. When someone posts a chart, you understand the context behind that trade that was taken. Damn, MACD slated 10 to 1 on Ethereum this morning. Nice one, MACD. Shout out to Daisy B. 5x leverage on Ethereum. Nice one. She has a BTC trade on an expiry contract. Sui, Say, Hema trading the ribbon on the 1 minute time frame. What an epic trade that is. And C-Bows with an epic 65% on VET. Nice one. A couple of key things that I want to mention about today's price action. Friday. US session has a bank holiday being July the 4th, which means we may not get typical behavior, and we can already see that Asia has run a trend which is not typical. UK session has consolidated and now we are in the US session. US session can either continue the trend or reverse it. So with US session having the bank holiday, we have to expect the unexpected, because this can give whales a chance to manipulate price whilst the market makers aren't here. Also, Margot Amella, who is a financial astrologer, flagged that July the 4th isn't just Independence Day for the US. It's also the solar return for the Declaration of Independence and an 83-year Jupiter return. In plain terms, big astro windows like this can bring surprise moves, tension, or spikes in volatility. To add to this, Annii put out a chart at the start of the UK session which says, I'm getting word on the conspiracy chain that a major military operation is about to be initiated over the weekend. It's a long weekend, so if something happens, only crypto can be affected. It's not a guarantee something's happening. What I'm hearing is that things that usually happen in preparation of an attack are happening now. I'm going to say don't stress out, but it doesn't hurt to tighten stops on really good trades, potentially hedge if it applies to you, and or take profits and be happy. So keep it in the back of your mind as you map out Friday and the weekend. Stay ready and don't get caught out. If you want to break this stuff down live, not just look back in hindsight, join TTC. All of it in real time, so you're ready when everyone else is guessing. And if you want to know where to from here, be sure to like and subscribe so you can be notified when Annii drops her update in a few days. She'll break down the next key levels, how she's seeing price shape up for the week ahead, and what she's watching next.